Hi guys, welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, I'm just doing a little discussion video. I kind of wanted to have a little discussion. So the season's about 2 weeks out now, so I thought I would make a discussion about IndyCar before the season starts. And I want to talk about, does IndyCar has a, I think in my opinion, IndyCar has a major problem, which I think IndyCar needs to address to grow. They do a few major things wrong that kind of halts their growth, in my opinion. I'm just gonna discuss them right now. So let's get right into the video. So I think one of IndyCar's major problem is social presence, and if I'm just gonna directly compare IndyCar to F1, because I do think in terms of rivalry, in terms of like fans, like if you're an F1 fan, the closest thing to F1 or the thrill of F1 is probably IndyCar racing. There's a few other series, but IndyCar is probably the highest contender. So the thing what in F1 does their social incredibly well. They post incredibly good posts, like here's what IndyCar does not do. Like F1 keeps all their followers up to date. Like, you know, as of recording this video, they just released a statement saying Lance Stroll got injured during some sort of training and he's gonna miss preseason testing. That kind of stuff is publicized. So now that this article is out, everyone and their mother is talking about it. You look up hashtag Lance Stroll, everyone's talking about how Lance Stroll is going to miss the thing, but there's not that same sort of, IndyCar doesn't build the same sort of presence. And there's a few other things that F1 does correct too, is they, for example, they share like statistics on, they'll show like, let's just say a random name, let's just say they'll show Max Verstappen and they'll be like, oh, Max Verstappen has had 208 starts and he's won 68 races. And that statistic, he makes him like the 9th best driver of all time. IndyCar doesn't do that kind of stuff. They do some of it, but they don't do it in a way that it's like good. It's kind of, F1 has really mastered it. They have a certain style of doing stuff. Like they put all these statistics into, like, you know, little graphs or little images, what looks incredibly clean and easy to digest, or even shareable. Like you can share it with your friends really easily. So I think that's what IndyCar really needs to improve. It's just the shareableness of IndyCar, and kind of focusing. Again, another example is IndyCar doesn't really have that much of a YouTube channel. Like, for example, if you go into F1 YouTube channel, they'll have a, you know, top 10 overtakes of 2023. And I'm sure that exists on IndyCar. I don't 100% know if that doesn't exist, but the way that F1 presents it, it's way more cleaner. Like, you know, they'll do like, you know, best wins of 2022, you know, Max Verstappen's best overtakes. They'll highly specify a lot of their content towards unique drivers, because they know these drivers, like, for example, in IndyCar, there's a lot of star drivers that everyone likes. You know, they could post a video about Romain Grosjean, and he's a star driver. Everyone knows him. There's a lot of people that started watching IndyCar because Romain Grosjean's a driver. So they could capitalize on his popularity and get a few clicks and a few more interactions. But I don't know. I think the big problem with IndyCar is they don't have the budget, which I do think they need to somehow work their way into a more social media budget, because that's kind of how the world is going. You need to modernize. This statement is going to be no surprise to any IndyCar fan. IndyCar needs to change their car. They've had the same car since 2012. They've had the same 2.2 liter engine since 2012. They need to, it's insane how they, like, for example, I know they're working on the hybrid system for next year. This year they're implementing 100% renewable fuels, which, you know, like if you're into that stuff, like I mean, for me, like, you know, I would rather them implement 100% renewable fuels than go electric. That's awesome for the sport, but people don't give a shit about people don't care about renewable. Like, that never goes through my mind. Like, I'm never like, oh, I'm gonna go watch this new sport. Oh wait, do they use do they use combustion engines? Like, that never even passes through my mind. So they need to, that stuff is great. It's good for, I'm sure it's good for, it's good for marketing. I'm sure some people like it. It's good for, just kind of a general kind of thing. But they need to focus their attention on more than just these things that, some people care about, but most people could not give a crap. Like, who cares? So like directly, I'm going to be comparing IndyCar a lot to F1 in this video, just because I'm a pretty avid F1 fan, so that's kind of what I know mostly. So comparing IndyCar to F1, F1's had two engine changes. Well, they're having a third one in a few years' time, which IndyCar has no plans to. Well, they were going to change their engine, but then they ditched that idea because of supply chain issues or whatever. But maybe there's some merit to it, but it's a little ridiculous. So, and then F1's going to have a new engine. F1 have had like 3 regulation changes in the same time that IndyCar has stayed with the same car. It's boring. That's the reason F1 is. I know the problem with, like IndyCar's a spec series, but having a new car every once in a while is good for the sport. It's healthy for the sport. Like, we could directly compare it to NASCAR. I know a lot of IndyCar fans maybe don't like NASCAR, or there's like some rivalry, but like when NASCAR released their Gen 6 car or whatever it was, like I don't really keep up with NASCAR that much, so sorry if I'm wrong about that. The hype behind the Gen 6 car when it was coming out, how it was going to perform, or even just throughout the whole of last year, just the hype around how the new Gen 6 car handles this track or handles this track or handles ovals, handles road courses was just immense. There's not that same, because everyone knows how the current car handles ovals. Everyone knows how it handles road courses. There's no sort of like, oh, I wonder if this is going to be a slower car this year. I wonder how it's going to be able to handle the kink at Road America. There's none of that discussion. It's like, it's going to handle the kink just like it has for the last 8 years. There's no changes. They need to change something up, and they need to be radical. They need to completely redesign the car, and this is also they need to add more horsepower. IndyCar currently has a weak car. Their car is as powerful as an F2 car. It's actually the F2. The F2 car is actually on paper faster. It has more aero. It's fast. Actually, maybe it doesn't have more aero. I think it just has more horsepower and top speed. But an F2 car, a feeder series of F1, is faster than an Indy car. Of course, there's some differences. IndyCar has some unique characteristics that obviously F2 doesn't have, but that's just embarrassing. They need to go back to their roots, and I never really watched in this time. They need to go back to their 1,000 horsepower monsters of, it's just, that's what they need. That's the whole reason why F1 is popular. F1 isn't popular because of Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton. Of course, that's part of the reason. That's popular because they're taking corners of 6-7 Gs. Their top speed is 200 miles an hour. What's IndyCar's top speed around road courses is like 160 or 170 or maybe 180. That's not impressive. Like, of course, I don't know, it's just not impressive. They need to step their game up, and until they step their game up, I don't know. I don't know where they can go. I think the next big problem is they don't have enough races. So currently they have 17 like rounds. Technically, in my eyes, they have 16 because they have a doubleheader at Iowa. So, and then let's talk about just the tracks they have. So I do think IndyCar they have some of the best tracks in the world. Like America has some of the best tracks. But let's talk about some of the interesting tracks. Like this is I think it's an okay track now. For example, the Music City Grand Prix. It's clearly the only reason it exists is because it's in Nashville, and that is it. The track kind of sucks. The racing has been meh. There's been disastrous crashes, and it's just like kind of been like they try and just like ignore it. They don't do anything. They try and make improvements, but it's still a sucky track. It's narrow. It doesn't make any sense. Of course, there's narrow street courses, but the only reason they're still in the calendar is because they've been around for like 50 years. So I think they need to add more tracks. And if for some, I know that America has way more tracks what they could utilize it. And I don't know why they don't. I don't know why they don't expand. Like I know they have a race in Canada. Why do they not expand outside Canada? And why don't they go to Mexico? There's good tracks over there. I don't get it. I don't get why the refusal to grow. Is it? I think part of it is just from money, because they don't have as much money as F1 to grow. But either way, I think they just need to add. They need to add like 3 more races. They need to add 20 races, and then I'll be happy with that. I don't think 17 is enough. Because the big problem with IndyCar 2 is IndyCar starts and they end in like 4 months. It's like a 4-month championship compared to F1 that is and I guess some people argue that F1 is too long now, which maybe there's some merit to that. Like I think they have like 23 races, what's kind of, I think, a little redundant, but they need 20 races. I think 20 races is a perfect number of races. They need to do something to expand the season. The season lasts, I got off on my screen right now, it lasts from March 5th until September. F1 still has another 2 months of racing. So we have to wait from all the way from September 10th. I don't know when the next season will start, 2024, but let's just say it's going to be March again. The beginning of March, we had to wait like 5 or 6 months for a new season. How can we? The off season is longer than the on season, which is a problem. I think they seriously need to think about how they can schedule their races to last longer and have a longer season. I think that kind of kills a lot the off season. This is probably going to be the most controversial thing in this whole video, so I think IndyCar needs to make some serious changes. They need to stop focusing on the 500 so much. Not like get rid of it, but like for example, they just released a new show. They just released the trailer for the show. I believe it's called 100 Days to Indy, and it's basically a show what's going to be behind the scenes of the drivers around the Indy 500, because the Indy 500 is a spectacle, and there's a lot of people that tune into the 500 what they don't actually necessarily know the drivers. Well, it's a cool concept they're doing, kind of a behind the scenes. But the problem I have with it is the 500 is their biggest event. It's the way they get all their marketing comes from the 500. Everything around the 500 is about the 500. So they need to, of course I do believe the 500 is never going to go away. The 500 is the most special race of the year. Just like any series has, NASCAR has the Daytona 500, IMS has the, Rolex 24, Le Mans has their Le Mans 24 hours. Of course, it's a special race, but all the other races matter. And I think that's really what IndyCar needs to do. They need to try and put more marketing effort into, and if they can use the 500 to funnel people in. But the problem I see I'm originally from Europe, from the UK specifically. Most Europeans don't give a crap they don't give a crap about ovals. It's just ovals aren't appealing to Europeans because Europeans ovals is not really a thing in Europe, so we don't really most people don't understand them. And there are some people that have tuned into IndyCar and figured out how ovals worked and the unique characteristics of how ovals are. But generally, when people think of ovals, they think of NASCAR. They think of pack racing going around in circles. That's not interesting. I think IndyCar need to, they need to, get people in, and they need to, promote people like, Road America's I think Road America's probably one of the best tracks in the world. Probably at least top 10, in my opinion. And that's a really cool track even for a European. And if they could get Europeans into, for example, into Road America, but Road America is cool, get them interested in the sport because of Road America, but then be like, oh, hey, I know you like apple pie, but here's some cherry pie. And people are going to end up liking that cherry pie. Because, you know, if you like, generally most people, if they like apple pie, they're going to like strawberry pie and cherry pie. So that's kind of how IndyCar needs to structure it. Is they need to, and you know, vice versa, they can, that's the reason the oval promotion is good, because, you know, vice versa, if you can get people that like NASCAR or whatever, like ovals, and you can get them hooked on the sport based on the ovals, but then feed them road courses, and then people might actually like the road courses. But I think they need to market the other races, because the whole championship is around the 500, which is fine, but I feel like it gets a little, you know, the other races are just filler races, and the 500 is the only thing that matters. But like, if you look at, like, you know, TV numbers, leading up to the 500, the TV numbers gradually climb up to the peak. And then, you know, the peak viewership is the 500 weekend. And after the 500, numbers slowly start dipping down, slowly, until they get to the last race, which generally, maybe if it's an exciting championship, I'm sure the last race will get a lot of views, but generally the last race doesn't perform as well as the 500. What's kind of an interesting thing, because if you think about it logically, the last race of the season means more than the 500, because, you know, the 500 just, there's obviously various reasons why the 500 is cool, but like the last race, you know, you win the championship, it decides the championship. So IndyCar definitely need to do something, and I don't know what it is, and they definitely need to improve stuff. And I think that until they can figure out what to improve, they're going to be stuck and they will not grow. And I want to have your guys' opinions. Please tell me what you think about all this stuff. If you agree with me, disagree with me, go ahead and I'll be sure to reply to you. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.